Welcome to this National MS Education and Awareness Month teleconference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and made possible in support from EMD Serono, Genentech, Mylan, and Sanofi Genzyme. I am your host, Mary Ann Lee Primer. I am the Multimedia and Communications Coordinator for MS Focus. I am joined by Dr. Bhupendra Khatri, who will be speaking about how to be the leader of your healthcare team and take control of your doctor's appointments. At the end of the presentation, there will be a brief question and answer discussion. There are no slides during this presentation, but in order to submit your questions via chat, please connect to the conference online. Go to readytalk.com and join in with access code 7766805. Again, to be able to ask a question, connect online, go to readytalk.com and join with access code 7766805. We encourage you to submit your questions as we go, and we will answer those questions at the end of the talk. Dr. Khatri is the founder and medical director of the Center for Neurological Disorders in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is one of the largest regional MS centers in the country. Dr. Khatri earned his medical degree from Grant College in Mumbai, India, and he completed his residency in neurology at the Medical College of Wisconsin. He has been a principal investigator in numerous clinical trials, and he has spoken at many national and international conferences. He's published more than 55 papers in peer-reviewed journals. He also wrote an award-winning best-selling book called Healing the Soul, Unexpected Stories of Courage, Hope, and the Power of Mind. And his latest book is called Healthcare 911, How America's Broken Healthcare System is Driving Doctors to Despair, Depriving Patients of Care, and Destroying Our Reputation in the World. Dr. Khatri, thank you for being with us. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann Lee. And good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for taking the time to be with us here today. I think it's going to be exciting 1 hour. I think we're going to learn a lot. One of the things that I want to share with you is that, MS is a lifelong disease. We don't have a cure at the moment. And this is a disease that once you get diagnosed, it's going to stay with you. So it's very, very important that the patients learn as much as they can about multiple sclerosis. Learn how to empower yourself, how you can be equal partner in managing your disease. And that's going to be the theme of our presentation today. So MS, it's still one of the commonest cause of disability in young adults in this country. There's about more than 1 million people afflicted by MS. Every week, we diagnose 200 new MS patients. So this is a major problem. It's a major neurological disease. And it was first described about 148 years ago by Professor Charcot in Paris, France. But still, we don't have a cure. But what's important is that we have made tremendous progress in understanding the pathophysiology of the disease. And because of that, we now have 15 approved therapies for relapsing form of MS, as well as a treatment for primary progressive MS as well. So we have come a long way. And one of the things with this new therapies, patients can achieve all their goals. They can do whatever they want to do. MS is not what it used to be. Now when I diagnose a patient with MS, of course, they're very, very scared. They're very frightened. They're very anxious. But I do tell them that, look, MS is not what it used to be 10, 15 years ago. Now we have so many new treatments, and they bring about almost, they shut down the disease. And we can make you stay well. You can achieve all your goals. And whatever you want to accomplish, you can do that. But in order to do that, you have to be equal partners with the neurologist as well. You have to start playing an active role in your MS. Because unless we hear from you and how you're doing, it is very difficult for us to adjust your medications, to switch your medications. So, as physicians, we prescribe medications, the best possible medications for you. We weigh the pros and the cons, the benefits and the side effects and complications. But it really makes a big difference if you become equal partner with the physician, and you play a very important role. So what do I mean by that? Well, one of the things is that, when a patient comes to see me in the clinic, for example, and I would ask, Mary, how are you doing? And Mary says, oh, Dr. Khatri, I'm doing great. And then the spouse or the caregiver or the partner would say, oh, Mary, but tell Dr. Khatri about the problems you're having with your bowel and your bladder, and that, you're not able to finish off the tasks that you used to do a year ago. And then says, oh, yeah, I'm having all these problems. So, in order for me to treat Mary appropriately, I need to know exactly what's happening with Mary as far as MS is concerned. But foremost, these therapies make a difference. All of the drug therapies that we have, they do make a difference. And we do know that the earlier you start the treatment, better the outcome. And staying on course, staying and taking your medicine like you should is very important. And that's one of the most important things, compliance. You would be surprised to know that even though we know that MS is one of the commonest causes of neurological disability in young adults, close to 46% of the patients do not take the medications as they are prescribed to them. Non-compliance is a big problem in MS patients. Not only in MS, in other conditions as well. We're all aware, patients who have epilepsy, diabetes, hypertension, they don't take the medicine like they should. And this causes a big problem. So I think one of the most important thing you can do right off the bat is to resolve and say that I'm going to take the medicine like it is prescribed, like how your neurologist has told you to take. So that is very, very important. Compliance is very important. And that's something that you can really resolve to do that. But other than that, I think there's a lot of things that we can talk about which will help you with your MS. And there's about 4 things that I'm going to talk about. One is, how are you doing with your MS? The second thing I'm going to talk about is, how do you really evaluate, and what are some of the objective parameters to indicate how you're doing with your MS? The other thing I'm going to talk about is the healthy lifestyle. How can you change? How can you change your habits? How can you change your diet? What should you do to make it better? And then, of course, I'm going to talk about the power of the positive thinking, how important it is to stay positive. So let's start first with how you're doing with your MS. MS affects the brain and the spinal cord. It's a disease of the central nervous system. And you know very well, brain and spinal cord controls all of your bodily functions, right? So if brain and spinal cord is affected by MS, and it can strike anywhere, in the brain or in the spinal cord, it can cause multiple different symptoms. It can cause weakness, it can cause balance issues, bowel bladder issues, and so we divide this into two categories: visible symptoms and non-visible symptoms. And what we mean by visible is something like you have weakness, or you're using a cane, or a walker, or a wheelchair. Everybody can say that, yeah, you're having some problems. If you have tremors, then people can see that and say that, yes, you have some problems. If you have spasms in your legs, we can see that. So these are all visible symptoms, and these are very easy to pick up when you go to your doctor or your healthcare provider. They can look at you and say, yeah, you're having all these problems. But there are a lot of invisible symptoms, like, for example, fatigue. Fatigue is a big problem in MS. Not too long ago, we did a survey of about 4,000 MS patients, and we asked them, please tell us the most commonest cause of disability, why you're not able to work, why you're not able to accomplish the task that you want to. And do you know the number one cause was fatigue? Majority of the patients said fatigue was a major issue. And so fatigue is invisible. Unless you tell your doctor that you have fatigue, it is very difficult for us to see or appreciate. And there's a lot of things we can do for fatigue. The other important thing is telling your family members, your healthcare providers, your spouse, your children, that you have fatigue issues. Because unless you really have a dialogue and you tell them what exactly you mean by fatigue, they will think that you're lazy. You don't want to do the work, and that creates a friction. And I've seen this happen in our clinic. I'll give you an example. There's a nurse who works in a hospital, and she was a great athlete. She used to work out daily. She would take part in triathlons and strong Ironman competitions. And she met this young man who was also in athletics, and they fell in love and they got married. Soon after the marriage, she started to have a lot of fatigue issues. And she would go home from hospital working as a nurse, and she would not have the energy to do the cooking, so she would pick up takeaway food. And it got to the point where even cleaning the dishes was a chore. She was so fatigued. She would eat and then lay down on the sofa and wake up in the morning and be ready to go home or to work. And the husband thought that she was just being lazy now that they're married, and she didn't want to do all that work. And they got into the arguments and they got into fights. And one day I was watching her, and she was limping a little bit on the floor. And I said, Sandra, what's wrong with you? And she sat down, she started crying. She says, Dr. Khatri, there's something wrong with me. I'm so tired, I can't do any work at home. I'm even at work, I'm finding it difficult. And I examined her, and we got the MRI, and she had MS. And that was the first time we diagnosed her as having MS, but it started out with fatigue as the major problem. So you can see how it can affect your family if you don't discuss with your family about the problem with the fatigue, because nobody sees fatigue. It's something that you feel. The other issues are bowel bladder problems. Nobody can see it, but you are the one who suffers, and you need to tell your healthcare provider how you doing with the bowel and bladder issues. Depression. That's also, 30% of the MS patients will have depression. And you need to share that with your doctor so that they can treat you appropriately. Other is the psychosexual issues. MS gets diagnosed when you're in the second or the third decade. And that's when, sexually you're active. And if it affects, it affects 76% of the patients, that creates a lot of psychosocial issues. And these need to be addressed, and you need to talk to your healthcare provider about it. So basically, what I'm saying is that, there are a lot of symptoms that your healthcare providers may not see, but you experience and you suffer, and you need to share this and let them know what you're going through so we can help you get better. This is something that you have to make a list when you go to see a doctor. Let them know. Because, we do MRI scans. MRI scans may be stable, even if you're having all those problems. Your exam may not have changed, and yet you have all these problems. And the doctor will say, Mary, your brain looks stable, your exam looks stable, stay with the course and go home. But you need to say, no, there's a lot of things that are happening with me. Let's talk about it. And unless you share that with your doctor, you may not be able to get the help that you deserve. So you need to empower yourself. You need to, you need to look at how things are going. Talk to your family members. Talk to your healthcare provider, your partner, and ask the questions. Are you having problems now more so than you did a year ago? Are you walking as well as you were about a year ago? Or have you cut short your walking, or you have to rest in between? Do you have difficulties with driving, getting lost? Is your memory being affected? Are you forgetting things? Are you not able to do multitasking that you used to do at one time? What about fatigue, and what about going to bed? Are you going to bed early than you used to, because otherwise it's very difficult for you to recuperate? And I think when you ask your coworkers, your family members, your friends, as to how you're performing, because sometimes you don't recognize the changes are occurring very, very slowly, and you may not recognize it. And the others who observe you would be able to tell you that, no, things are not the same as they were before. Are you able to finish your work and still have some time and energy to do things at home with the family or cook a meal? Are you able to do all of that? And if not, then you need to have those issues addressed when you go to see your physician. So I think that's important. How is your hand function? How is your vision? Your emotional status? So, sharing that, how you're doing with your MS is very, very important. Now, the other thing that you can do is measure yourself, set yourself some parameters and say that, okay, every month you're going to walk a certain distance and time yourself, say 25 feet. How fast can you walk? Or do other tasks that you can repeat every month and time it, and see if that is about the same or is it getting worse. But the other most important thing is talk to your doctor about your MRI scans. MRI scans are a good biomarker for MS. That's the best biomarker we have at the moment. We don't have any blood test that will tell us how your MS is doing. Like diabetes, for example, we can measure hemoglobin A1C. If you have hypertension, we can measure your blood pressure, and we can tell how you're doing. But with MS, there is no blood test, right? So we do rely on the MRI scan. It's a good biomarker, but unfortunately, we can't do frequent MRIs. There's a consortium of the MS experts who recommend that we should do MRI once a year, at least in the first 5 years of the diagnosis, and then maybe a little bit less frequently, or when your clinical exam changes or you're not doing well. But the important thing is to do frequent MRI scans and discuss it with your doctors. Ask your doctor, how's your MRI looking? And there are different sequences that we do with the MRI. We can look at what is your disease burden overall, which is what we call the T2 flare images. That can tell us from the day one how much of MS disease burden you have accumulated in the brain. So that can tell us it's a footprint of your MS, if you will. The second thing is looking at enhancing lesions. So, when you go for your MRI, they first get a number of sequences. They pull you out of the machine and then give you some dye, and then wait a little bit and put you back in the machine and do another scan. And if the dye gets into the brain, we can tell that there's some active disease ongoing. And so that would tell us that whether the medicine that you're taking, is it working or not working. So I think it's important to talk to your physician about your MRI scans. Now, some of the MS centers, if you go to MS centers, they will do a number of things for you. For example, a 25-foot walk. They may measure your cognitive function by doing different tests, and they do it serially. And so we keep a trend and to see how you're doing. If there's a downward decline, then we know that things are not working out well, and that would be the time to change therapy for you. Now, one other thing is that there are a lot of predictors. For example, we do know that some patients, if they have bad prognostic features, they may not do as well. And what are those? So if somebody gets diagnosed with MS after the age of 40, they may not do as well. A male patient may not do as well as the female patient. If you have frequent relapses in a year, you may not do as well. If your first relapse is that of weakness rather than sensory symptoms, somebody who presents initially with weakness, they may not do as well. If you have your first attack and if you get treated with steroids and you do not recover fully, you may not do as well. And your MRI scan is also a good indicator. If you have a lot of lesions, you may not do as well. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because if you have bad prognostic features, then you need to be extra careful. You want to take every precaution to make sure that you do well. You want to change your lifestyle. You want to make sure that you exercise. And that brings me to the next topic, and that is about healthy lifestyle changes, right? So one of the most important things is diet. We have heard it many, somebody has said it for hundreds of years ago that you are what you eat, and that is so true. Eating healthy is very important, not only in MS patients, but for everyone. And one of the questions that the patient asked me, Dr. Khatri, what kind of diet should I follow? And I said, I think the important thing is to eat healthy. And everybody knows what healthy food looks like and what unhealthy food looks like. And so you need to be careful. You just eat what is healthy, that looks healthy to you, Or if you have any questions, of course, talk to the doctor or to your healthcare provider or the nurses that will be able to tell you. But I encourage my patients to eat healthy. There are a lot of different diets that are out there. We have the Walls diet, we have the Swings diet, we have the anti-inflammatory diets, and there are some studies ongoing to compare and to see if any one particular diet is better. But until we have some answers, I think the important thing is to eat healthy diet, because if you get very, very strict with one particular diet, one, I think it's very stressful. Secondly, it's very difficult to keep up with that diet for a long period of time. But I think if you eat healthy and develop some healthy choices with your diet, I think that will stay with you. And you will enjoy your food as well, because you don't have to be very, very strict and eliminate everything that those special diets tell you to do. But having said that, one of the important things I do tell my patients is to take vitamin D. And vitamin D is very important. And this is something that I encourage all my patients to do is to take vitamin D supplements. And what we do is we measure their levels. The vitamin D level, it's a simple test. We do a blood test, and it will tell us what your vitamin D level is. And we want to keep the level at about 60 or 70. And whatever it takes to raise to that level. And then the maintenance dose is about 4,000 international units of vitamin D3. Now, why is vitamin D important? There have been a lot of studies done. There's still some research done. And it does tell us that vitamin D is protective of getting MS. Once you get your level up, it does have a positive effect on the course of the MS. It reduces the relapses. And it is very, very important to know what your vitamin D level is. All my patients in our clinic, they know their vitamin D level. We measure it at least once, if not twice a year, to make sure that the vitamin level is at about 60 or 70, round about there. Now, the other important thing about vitamin D, the incidence of MS in this country is 1 in 740. If a parent or a sibling has MS, then the incidence goes up to 1 in 40, 40. The only thing that we know will protect one from getting MS is vitamin D. So it's very, very important that if you have MS, then make sure that your children, your siblings take vitamin D, because it will help protect them from getting MS. If you have children that are underage, like under 16 or 17, talk to the pediatrician, and they will advise as to how much you should take. But the important thing is to get the level checked. And once your levels are checked, the doctor can advise how much you should take to keep your level at about 60. The other thing that I advise my patients to take is omega-3, flaxseed oil or fish oil. Plant-based omega-3 is much better. Flaxseed oil, and I usually advise them to take about 2 grams of flaxseed oil or fish oil a day. And this has an effect on your immune cells. The pro-inflammatory immune cells go down, and the anti-inflammatory immune cells go up in number. So it promotes healing in the brain. So it's very important to kind of take that. So I tell my patients that eat healthy, but make sure that you take some supplements. And one of the supplements is vitamin D, and the other one is either flaxseed oil or fish oil. The other thing is smoking. You need to quit smoking if you are smoking, because smoking has been shown in a number of clinical trials that it has an adverse effect on MS. The course of MS becomes much more severe if you're smoking. When you smoke, there's multiple chemicals that are secreted in your blood, and one of them is called ecrolin. Ecrolin is a neurotoxic. It destroys your nerve cells, and you already have some problems with the MS, which has killed some of the neurons. And if you smoke, it's like adding fuel to the fire. And so you need to quit smoking. It's never too late. If you're smoking now, quit smoking, because your MS will get better. You will see a difference. So quit smoking if you are. That's very, very important, right? The other one is alcohol. I tell my patients not to drink alcohol because alcohol does destroy neurons. And that's, again, like adding fuel to the fire. And, one of my patients says, Dr. Khatri, but I like red wine. I want to take red wine because it's antioxidant. And I tell them that, look, red grape juice is also antioxidant, so you don't have to take wine. Just take the red grape juice. But this one particular patient said, Dr. Khatri, but let me have some wine. And I said, okay. Finally, I gave in, and I said, okay, you can have 1 glass a week of red wine. The next time they came to the clinic, her husband said, Dr. Khatri, you should have never given her the permission to drink that 1 glass of wine a week. And I said, why? What happened? And he said, well, she came home and found the biggest glass that was in the house and filled it up with the red wine, and that's what she would do. So, you need to be careful with the alcohol. Maybe 1 glass a week, but if you can avoid alcohol, that's probably the best thing to do. So the next thing that I want to focus on is exercise. Exercise is very, very important for MS, extremely important. I cannot overemphasize how important it is to exercise. The exercise, any kind of exercise that you enjoy doing, it could be walking, it could be running, it could be yoga, it could be balancing exercise, it could be tai chi, swimming, any exercise that you do, but you need to be active. You need to do on a regular basis the exercises. Very important. Talk to if you don't know what to do, talk to your doctor. Ask them to refer you to a physical therapist, and they can teach you what to do. They will evaluate you. They'll find out where your arms are weak or legs are weak or your balance is affected. They'll teach you appropriate exercises to do, and then write it down. And what's important is when you go to the physical therapist, have one of the friends or your family members, or your partner, your spouse, videotape how you doing the exercise. Nowadays with the smartphone, you can videotape. And then so when you go home, you can watch the video and exercise, watching yourself exercising, which makes it a lot easier because then you can remember what to do. But exercising is very, very important, right? As we age, we all get weaker. We all lose mobility. We all lose strength. But when you have MS, everything gets magnified. And so even if your disease may not be getting worse, it's just that because of the aging process, you lose all of that function. It gets magnified. So one of the best ways to counter that is to exercise. And that is very, very important. Now, one of the things we do know that when you exercise, your body produces what we call BDNF. It stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factors, BDNF. Now, BDNF it promotes neural stem cells to grow in your brain. BDNF is like the miracle grow for the plants. You know how you put miracle grow in the plants and they just flourish? It's the same way. If you take BDNF and you put it in the culture or a petri dish with neurons, they start sprouting and they grow. And it's the same way when you exercise, your BDNF increases, and that causes neural stems to grow. A lot of my patients, they come and say, Dr. Khatri, what about stem cell? I want to try stem cell therapy, or I want to do this. And I say, well, do you exercise? Oh, no, we don't exercise. I said, well, that's the best way to produce more neural stem cells in your brain, in your spinal cord, is to exercise. And you will rejuvenate your nervous system. So exercising is very, very important. There is a book, and it's called The Spark, S-P-A-R-K, The Spark. And the author is I forget the author's name, but that book is excellent. The Spark, and you should read that book, and it will encourage you to and give you a lot of science behind exercising and how it helps not only the muscles and your balance and your strength, but exercise will also improve your memory. A lot of studies have shown that your memory will get better. And as you know, 65% of the MS patients have memory issues. And so by exercising, you increase the neural stem cells in your brain, the connections grow, and the synapses increase, and your memory gets better as well. So exercising is very, very important, right? Now, some of the patients will tell me, Dr. Khatri, but I can't exercise. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm in a walker. I can't move my legs. My arm is paralyzed or my leg is paralyzed. And I tell them that, look, even if you can do passive range of motion, if you can have one of the family members move your legs for about 5 minutes, up and down, flex the knee, make it straight, move it up and down again for 5 minutes, that sends enough signals to the brain, and it makes a difference. So, ask for help. Your family members or somebody can help you move your extremities if you can't do it yourself. That makes a difference. It does send signals to the brain, and it does create more connections and more synapses in the brain and the nervous system, and it does help. So exercising is very, very important. If you get tired, start out slow. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Yoga is very good. It will not tire you. It will rejuvenate you. And now there are, MS certified yoga teachers. In our clinic, we have yoga classes for our patients once a week, and they can do chair yoga if they can't sit on the floor, because there's some patients who have problems, right? So they can do chair yoga. So we have session that is floor yoga or mat yoga, if they're able to, sit on the floor and do all the yoga. And then we have a second class that is strictly for those who cannot do all of those things on the mat, and they will be sitting on the chair and do the yoga. And it's equally beneficial. So any kind of exercise that you can do is very, very helpful. Some of the alternative therapies like massaging, that is helpful. Massaging has a lot of benefits, health benefits. So you need to empower yourself. But these are the things that you can do. As I said at the onset, we can prescribe the medications, but you have to do your part. If you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will. And you have to be equal partners in managing your disease. You need to take control. You need to make sure that I'm going to take the medicines on a regular basis. I'm not going to miss my dose. You need to make sure that you are doing well. If you're not doing well, you're going to talk to your neurologist about it. You're going to make sure that you're changing your lifestyle. You're developing healthy habits. You're making sure that you're eating right. You're not smoking. You quit smoking. You make sure that you don't take alcohol. You make sure that you're exercising on a regular basis. Now, the most important thing that I want to talk about is also hydration. MS patients don't drink enough water. And they don't drink enough water, and I can understand because they say, they have to go to the bathroom a lot. But dehydration is the commonest cause of fatigue in MS patients, feeling lousy, feeling like they have no energy. It's dehydration. So you need to drink a lot of water. So what do I mean by a lot of water? Well, the rule of thumb is that a large glass of water for every 10 kilos of your body weight. So if you weigh 80 kilos, you have to drink 8 large glasses of water a day. Now, some of my patients say, but I drink a lot of coffee. Well, in that case, you have to take extra water because caffeine is a diuretic. You urinate more and you become more dehydrated. So you need to drink at least, if you're 80 kilos, which is sort of the average weight, about 8 glasses of water a day. Now, how do you remember to take that? What I do at my work, I have bottles of water that I must consume for the day. Or you could take a jug of water. Take an empty gallon of water, milk, for example. Pour in 8 glasses of water and leave it out on the table where you can see it. At the end of the day, that water should be gone. So you know that you got your quota for the day. And yeah, sure, the first few days you'll be running to the bathroom a lot. But you know what? Drinking water will help with your bladder function. It will get better. And you will feel better. So drinking enough water is very important. You need to resolve. You need to say, okay, I'm going to drink 7 glasses of water a day. If you don't like drinking plain water, you can put some little cranberry juice or lemon juice or cucumbers or whatever to flavor it. And then you can drink that. Make sure that you drink enough water for the day. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is the power of positive thinking. There is no doubt that if you're thinking positive, you will feel better. Your MS will get better. And this is so important, to have positive thoughts. And I'm going to share a story from my book that I wrote called Healing the Soul. And it's the first chapter, and it's about Chris. Chris is a young, vibrant, young MS patient who unfortunately developed a severe form of MS. She was getting frequent relapses. She would get, steroids very frequently because of the relapses. She was on one of the preventive therapies for MS, but yet she was still getting a lot of relapses. And it got to the point where walking from one end of the room to the other was a chore. She would have to hang on to furniture. And that was a time when we were asked to participate in a clinical trial of Tysabri. As you know, Tysabri is an intravenous medicine that's given once a month. So they asked us to participate in this trial where some of the patients get placebo, some patients get the real drug, but nobody knows as to who's getting what. And so we said, yeah, we'll participate in the clinical trial. And I asked Chris, and I said, Chris, we're going to do this clinical trial. Would you want to participate in the clinical trial? And she said, sure. So she started getting the infusions once a month, and it's a 2-year clinical trial. 1 year into the clinical trial, she was so much better that she was able to trek down the Grand Canyon with a 45-pound backpack. And then she was able to climb up again. She started running. She would run up to 3 miles a day. She started bicycling. She would do about 200 miles over the weekends. She was so much better. And then the unthinkable happened. The drug was pulled off the market because of the PML cases. There were 3 deaths that occurred. And so the company pulled off the drug from the market. And Chris was devastated. She did not know what to do. She wrote to the pharma company and said that, look, I'll never sue you. Please give me the drug. Of course, they would not give it to her. So she, talked to the newspaper thinking that public pressure might help. And in the morning, I open up the newspaper, and there's Chris's photo in the front page with a backpack. And the title said, "The drug that gave her life is now pulled away from her." And that afternoon, we break the code. And Chris was getting placebo all the time. And so I called Chris, and I said, Chris, I want you to know that you were getting placebo all the time. You were not getting the real drug. And Chris was quiet for a while, and then she said, Dr. Khatri, that's the power of positive thinking. She never doubted that she was not getting the real drug. She was convinced every time she came in that she was getting the real drug. She was so positive. And so, the positive thoughts, the positive energy that she had, she was so convinced that she was able to convert a placebo into a powerful therapeutic agent. And there's a lot of science behind that. When you're thinking positive, your immune cells become more anti-inflammatory. They promote healing. When you are angry, when you're depressed, when you're negative, your immune cells, which promote inflammation, increase in number. And that causes more problems. So, I think it's important to cultivate and be mindful. There's a lot of books that tell you how to improve and be mindfulness. And that is important. Stay in a positive energy. And that is important because that's going to help you. And we have seen this time and again. You ask your neurologist, do they feel that the patients have positive energy and positive thoughts, they do better compared to the same, MRI, disease activity, same everything, but the other people are negative, they're so depressed, they have negative thoughts, and even though the disease burden is about the same on the MRI, they don't do as well. And so it's very, very important to cultivate and stay positive. And I think that is very important. So, it's about 7:47. It's in Milwaukee, it is 7:47 right now. So I'm going to end my talk here and see if you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Khatri. And we actually do have some questions from people listening online. And you mentioned, to become an equal partner with your physician. It seems that communication is a key factor. So Jessica from online is asking, how do you get your provider to take your chronic pain seriously?
Jessica, thank you for asking that question. Pain is one of the symptoms of MS. And pain can be disabling. It can be, it can affect your lifestyle. It can affect things that you want to do. And I think it's important to convey to your physician that, look, because of the pain, you're not able to do certain things. You're not able to function well. And I think have a dialogue. Tell them to your provider that this is something that you want to talk on that particular visit and how we can address that. Because there's different ways of addressing pain. If your neurologist feels that he or she may not be competent enough to address and manage your pain, there are pain doctors, there are pain specialists who can help you as well. But it takes a multidisciplinary approach. One is physical therapy, one is psychological. The other one is, when it gets to the chronic pain, it affects your depression, it affects your cognition, it affects your psychosocial relationship. So you need to kind of approach it from a different angle. But I think if you have chronic pain, as Jessica pointed out, how do you approach and how do you convince your healthcare provider, I think what you need to do is let them know in advance that your visit to the doctor on that particular day should be focused on pain, nothing else. You can go again for some other issues that you have, but just make that a visit that is specifically addressed for pain and see what can be done. And if your neurologist is not able to help you, he or she can refer you to another specialist that can help because they specialize in managing pain.
Thank you. And Mishika I may be pronouncing the name wrong. Mishika is asking, what is the name of your book again? And I actually looked it up while you were talking. You were saying The Spark, and
yes.
I found a few books called The Spark. Are you referring to the 28-day breakthrough plan?
No.
No.
I think the author is John Reddy.
John Reddy.
Yeah, I think so. That's the author's name. But that's a book that talks about the benefits of exercise and what it does neurophysiologically to your body. So you get a scientific basis to understand what it does for you and why you should exercise, so that you learn to exercise. Now, my book that I wrote is called Healing the Soul, like healing the soul. And that has become a bestseller now. My second book, as you pointed out, is called Healthcare 911. And we talk about in that book how the physicians getting burnt out. I don't know if you know, but 400 physicians kill themselves each year because of the physician burnout. And
wow.
That's a number, big number. And there are many reasons why they kill themselves. One of them is administrative overdominance. And one of them is the healthcare record, the healthcare records, the electronic healthcare records. It's gotten to the point where, sometimes when the patients go to see a doctor, the doctor hardly even looks at them. They are just focused on the computer and they're typing, or they're looking at it and they're asking the patient questions. They don't make eye contact. And we're required to do all of that in a 15-minute or 20 minutes time. The follow-up where the patient comes in, we're supposed to listen to them, examine them, review their labs, review their medications, order tests. And we have to do all of this on electronic health records and accomplish all of that in 15, 20 minutes. And, it's just not feasible. It's not possible. And something has to give. And what gives is the relationship that we have with our patients. The connection that we used to have. And nowadays, I hear from a lot of patients. They say, when I go to see my doctor, we hardly talk about anything else. They don't look at you. They don't even make eye contacts. And it's not that the physicians don't want it. It's just that they're pressured into that kind of a style. And that causes a burnout. That causes a lot of stress for the physicians. We're losing the art of medicine by doing.
So as a patient, how can people connect with their physicians if they see that this is happening?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And I think that there's a lot that the patients can do. They have the power. They need to talk to their Congress and the legislatures and say, look, the physicians are suffering. They are dying. They're killing themselves. One physician kills themselves each day. And we need to listen. The politicians are not talking about this because they don't want to do anything until it becomes absolute crisis, and we're heading towards a crisis. So many physicians are killing themselves. So I think the patients can, if they feel that truly, if they talk to their neurologist or talk to their primary care doctor, if they say, yeah, it is a big issue, then they should really let the congressmen, the legislatures know that, look, you need to do something about it. The book that I wrote called the book that I wrote, the Healthcare 911, it addresses all of those issues in there, and I think it's good for patients to read because they will know what their physicians are going through as well.
Thank you. One last question because we're running out of time, and we won't be able to get to all the questions, but one person asked, they said, they have severe depression, they're on antidepressants. How can they think positive when they feel emotionally horrible every day?
Right, and that's a very important issue. Depression can affect about 30% of the patients, and some patients have major depression. So one, I think getting to the psychiatrist is very important, because now we have a lot of different drugs, and they can listen to you and get you the right drug for you. Now, if the drug doesn't help, there's a lot of other treatment options that we can do. There's a magnetic stimulation of the brain that can help. There's a lot of techniques. There's psychotherapy. And so, one can approach from that angle. The other one is exercise. There have been studies done at Duke University where they put the patients through exercise program on a daily basis, and that elevated their mood. It helped the depression significantly.
Thank you. And you mentioned, if you can't do a full exercise, to get some help and have family members help you out. And unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. If you missed any part of this teleconference, it will be replayed on msfocusradio.org, and it will also be available on demand through SoundCloud. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the time and access information. This teleconference series will wrap up this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with MS specialist Dr. Aaron Boster as he discusses progressive MS. We would like to thank our sponsors for their support of National MS Education and Awareness Month. Thank you to everyone listening to this teleconference right now, and especially to our speaker. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Bhupendra Khatri.
Thank you so much, Mandy.
Thank you. Have a good night.